What's up? What's
What's
up?
up, YouTube family?
All right, YouTube, we are back. If you didn't already remember, this young gentleman over here is.
Who am I? Am I they? I'm just playing.
Don't do that.
It's your boy Cleo.
And it's your girl Shan. So we are back, and today we're gonna do Thomas Sowell, where current black culture really comes from. So this will be interesting to hear.
Yeah.
Some facts, of course. All right, you ready?
So Thomas Sowell gonna break it down.
He gonna break it down.
Okay, let him do what it do.
All right, let's get it.
These people are creating a terrible problem in our cities. They can't or won't hold a job, they flout the law constantly and neglect their children, they drink too much, and their moral standards would shame an alley cat. For some reason or other, they absolutely refuse to accommodate themselves to any kind of decent, civilized life. This was said in 1956 in Indianapolis, not about blacks or other minorities, but about poor whites from the South. Nor was Indianapolis unique in this respect. A 1951 survey in Detroit found that white Southerners living there were considered undesirable by 21% of those surveyed, compared to 13%.
That's a big old dog, baby, man.
Mm-hmm. I just not realized that's a dog.
I had to pause right there. I'm sorry. That's a big old dog, baby, man.
Wow.
That was a waste of plastic. Wow, that's just get it.
Who ranked blacks the same way. In the late 19...
What?
Why was it naked?
I don't know. It just said it. You see how the people living, they probably didn't think about no dog having no clothes on.
Clothes off the dog, baby, and put it on a baby. No, man.
40s, a Chicago employer said frankly, "I told the guard at the plant gate to tell the hillbillies that there were no openings." When poor whites from the South moved into northern cities to work in war plants during the Second World War, occasionally a white Southerner would find that a flat or a furnished room had just been rented when the landlord heard his Southern accent. More is involved here than a mere parallel between blacks and Southern whites. What is involved is a common subculture that goes back for centuries, which has encompassed everything from ways of talking to attitudes toward education, violence, and sex, and which originated not in the South, but in those parts of the British Isles from which white Southerners came. That culture long ago died out where it originated in Britain, while surviving in the American South. Then it largely died out among both white and black Southerners, while still surviving today in the poorest and worst of the urban black ghettos. It is not uncommon for a culture to survive longer where it is transplanted and to retain characteristics lost in its place of origin. The French spoken in Quebec and the Spanish spoken in Mexico contain words and phrases that have long since become archaic in France and Spain. Regional German dialects persisted among Germans living in the United States after those dialects had begun to die out in Germany itself. A scholar specializing in the history of the South has likewise noted among white Southerners archaic word forms, while another scholar has pointed out the continued use in that region of terms that were familiar at the time of the first Queen Elizabeth. The card game whist is today played almost exclusively by blacks, especially low-income blacks, though in the 18th century it was played by the British upper classes and has since then evolved into bridge. The history of the evolution of this game is indicative of a much broader pattern of cultural evolution in much more weighty things. Southern whites not only spoke the English language in very different ways from whites in other regions. Their churches, their roads, their homes, their music, their education, their food, and their sex lives were all sharply different from those of other whites. The history of this redneck or cracker culture is more than a curiosity. It has contemporary significance because of its influence on the economic and social evolution of vast numbers of people, millions of blacks and whites, and its continuing influence on the lives and death.
Well, why you gotta call it redneck or crackers?
I guess I don't know. Like in the area we live in right now, it was more considered rednecks live around here, and I was like,
so you
okay,
got
rednecks.
I mean, I'm gonna play it.
Wow.
Deaths of a residual population in America's black ghettos, which has still not completely escaped from that culture. From early in American history, foreign visitors and domestic travelers alike were struck by cultural contrasts between the white population of the South and that of the rest of the country in general, and of New England in particular. In the early 19th century, Alexis de Tocqueville contrasted white Southerners with white Northerners in his classic Democracy in America, and Frederick Law Olmsted did the same later in his books about his travels through the antebellum South, notably Cotton Kingdom. The cultural values and social patterns prevalent among Southern whites included an aversion to work, proneness to violence, neglect of education, sexual promiscuity, improvidence, drunkenness, lack of entrepreneurship, reckless searches for excitement, lively music and dance, and a style of religious oratory marked by strident rhetoric, unbridled emotions, and flamboyant imagery. This oratorical style carried over into the political oratory of the region in both the Jim Crow era and the Civil Rights era, and has continued on into our own times among black politicians, preachers, and activists. Touchy pride, vanity, and boastful self-dramatization were also part of this redneck culture among people from regions of Britain where the civilization was the least developed. They boast and lack self-restraint, Olmsted said, after observing their descendants in the American antebellum South. While Professor Grady McWhiney's Cracker Culture is perhaps the most thorough historical study of the values and behavioral patterns of white Southerners, many other scholarly studies have turned up very similar patterns, even when they differed in some ways as to the causes. Professor David Hackett Fisher's Albion Seed, for example, challenges the Celtic connection thesis put forth by Professor McWhiney, but shows many of the same cultural patterns among the same people, both in Britain and in the American South. Popular writings of the 19th and 20th centuries have likewise described similar behavior, including the Indianapolis residents' comments on white Southern migrants to that city, which sounds so much like what many have said about ghetto blacks. None of this is meant to claim that these patterns have remained rigidly unchanged over the centuries, or that there are literally no differences between whites and blacks in any aspects of this subculture. However, what is remarkable is how pervasive and how close the similarities have been.
Teaching your grandma social media.
Wow. That was eye-opening because I never knew that. So it says it survives longer where it's transplanted. So these things that were usually done in another or in the white culture in another country, came over here, and of course a lot of blacks still continue to talk in Ebonics and live. Because I mean, at the beginning, what he was describing, of course, in my mind, I picture, a black community.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
before the picture came up.
Before the picture came up. But that's how the black community is more so perceived.
It's shame alley cat.
Yeah, but seriously, but when you go to certain areas of just about any town, I mean, here in Florida, we have a few of those.
Yeah.
So it's like, of course, in my mind, a black area, a black ghetto does come to mind.
Yeah.
I mean, I know they say the area of town that I grew up in was more considered, for white families and things like that, and they really wanted to bring in more black families at the time. So my grandfather said he married my grandma so that he could buy a house in that area.
What?
But it was just to get us out of living in a ghetto.
Okay, I think it's more with that story. I think that the people were saying that he had to be married to buy a house in that area.
Yeah,
right?
they had to.
Okay.
So, but it was also away from my grandfather from Alabama moving from the country, and my grandmother growing up in Georgia moving from again a country, ran down area. Both of them coming together and moving into a community that, hey, more white families lived, and they were able to buy a house there. So when we would go with my mom home, home with my mom, it would be more in like a ghetto area.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, I of course preferred my grandparents' house than to go, home anytime. But a lot of people, they're stuck in that area, but they can get out of it. And this right here, just learning this right here, information is like, wow. We really think that blacks came up with all these different ways of speaking and thinking? I mean, these white people that were in in the video, they were being turned away because of an accent, because they were trying to get a place to stay so they can get a job. And guess who that's happening to now?
The reason why they was turned away was because of they were looking at their history.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
They're looking at the history.
When he said it's shame of alley cat, think of alley cat. You say alley cat, it's just it looks bad.
He looks horrible.
Said the fur on is all roughed up. So nobody would give him a job because I don't want that foolishness at my workplace. You know what I'm saying? So, and they didn't feel that they had the education to be able to work there. They wasn't smart enough. So I tell you everything. Do this, do that. I need you to every time I come over here, I got to tell you what to do. You know what to do. Put the packages in the box. Put the packages in the box. That's all you do. Why are you sitting down? You know what I'm saying? So you dealing with that.
You're dealing with it,
man.
Yeah.
But
they brought the mentality to that area, and again, that's been transplanted from one area of the country to another area of the country. It already came from the British Isles already, so now it's over in America, and now it's going to be transplanted from the south up to the north, the west. It's in each community. It's in every community. But again, it did not start in the black community. It was transplanted here.
So it's like a hand-me-down.
It's like a hand-me-down that they don't want to take off. Wow, well that's just my 2 cents on that one. You got anything else?
No, you covered it all.
I mean that dog baby.
That dog baby.
That was some info.
That dog baby was butt naked.
That dog.
It was stark naked. And it was tall as a 3-year-old.
It
man.
was laying on the kid.
All that plastic, man.
But hey, that was the toys they had, and
back
again,
then,
some of them have them now.
Man, they was like, man, take the clothes off that dog baby
and put it on that. That's probably what they had. That's probably what happened.
Wow.
I mean, you never know, but that was just wow. Thanks, Thomas Sowell, for that knowledge, because did not have any idea that was a thing.
That's still hard for me to believe.
It's still hard. Yeah. What is it? The redneck. I mean, okay, you hear the word redneck, and yes, you immediately think of
redneck culture.
Yeah, but black rednecks. I never
black redneck.
They
didn't say
right.
He didn't say black redneck. He said redneck.
I'm sorry.
White redneck. That's what he said.
I wasn't.
That's why I was like, well, did he just say that? Why you gotta say?
Yeah, I think that's why he said black redneck too. But I'm sorry.
Maybe I'm wrong. You wrote it down?
I wrote down rednecks. I was just like, what? Like, I wrote down. I'm sorry. I didn't write down everything. I was just trying to like make little notes. Oh my gosh!
He said cracker redneck.
Yes.
That's what he said. That's why I was like, what? Did he just say that?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Well, hey.
All right, YouTube. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Mr. Thomas Sowell blows our mind again.
Yeah, he does, man. He do.
Yeah, it's just the information that you get, the knowledge that you get.
And that's what it's about. It's about being educated, man.
Yeah. Learning for ourselves.
Yeah.
All right, YouTube. Peace.